All right, welcome back to Pine Tree State Restorations and everything and how to reload easily the famous 38 short Colt. Now, a little history on the 38 short Colt. Invented in 1874, 1875, originally for the cartridge conversion of the 1851 Colt Navy pistol, going from black powder loading each cylinder with a ball and powder to a center fire cartridge. They could just flip a gate open and load each shell in the gun. So that's what this is originally designed for, the 38 short Colt. And then in 1875, they came out with the 38 long Colt. And then in 1898, Smith & Wesson invented the 38 special. All three bullets from the same family, all three bullets, same family. But the 38 short Colt, you can shoot this bullet in any gun that's a 38 or a 357 Magnum. And they're fun to shoot. They're cheap to reload because there's not much powder, not much lead. I mean, it's just an inexpensive bullet. It's accurate, and it's about as powerful as a 380, which is pretty cool. So I shoot that in my 2-inch snubby, my Taurus, and let me show you how I did it. So I took a bunch of 38 special brass, and first you got to cut that brass down to 762, which there's quite a bit of brass on there, so you don't want to try to take it all at once with a case trimmer like that. You'd be sitting there all day trying to crank all that brass off. So what I did was I made a little arbor for my lathe that fits inside the shell. Not a snug fit, but just pretty close fit to inside the shell here. And then put a collet chuck in the lathe, and I would slip the brass over that. Then I would clamp down on the brass so that way that the piece on the inside wouldn't crush it. And I'd have it hanging out, and I'm cutting off all the waste anyway that's in the collet. And I would cut it off to about 15 thousandths longer than I need. That way I could finish it off with the case trimmer. We'll get to that in a minute. And what I did was I used a part-off blade, and I locked the carriage on the lathe. So I just had to put one in. I used my caliper as a depth gauge, like this. You use the depth gauge part of your caliper. You would line it up. Basically, the back of the bullet would be here, and you push that up to the chuck and you tighten it. Have that set so you're leaving about 15 thousandths long on this. And then after you're all done with the shells on the lathe, you put them on your case trimmer, set it for 762. Put them on, crank it down, and then you'll have them all. Then you have to deburr them on the outside and inside with a deburring tool. There's one here. Get this out of here. All right, you got to deburr the inside and the outside, so you'll need this. This deburrs the outside. This deburrs the inside. Okay. Then once you get all that done and deprimed, got to deprime them all, everything cleaned up. What I did was I took all the cases after I resized them. What I did was I deprimed them and resized them, then put them in a bowl of hot soapy water, washed them, then blew them all out, laid them out on a parchment paper, put it in the oven on low and let them 100 degrees and let them dry out, and then I brought them back in. So the formula I came up with is pretty good little formula here. I'm shooting it out of my 2-inch snubby. Is right here. 100 grain bullet, round nose, flat point, right here. Hard cast. Okay, come down. Lead, solid lead. And I use 2.3 grains of bullseye. Okay. And then primer, I use CCI 500. Case length 762. Brass. And the overall length, this is important. This is very important, or you're going to have a problem. The case overall length has to be 1.020. Reason being is because you need to get past that lube groove, about halfway past that lube groove right there, because you need to put a hard crimp on that shell. All right? That's crimped on there. And I did not use a 38 special crimping tool. What works better is a 9mm crimping tool. Put that in your press and use the 9mm crimping die because it's closer to the diameter of this and it does a better crimp. So you got to have a hard crimp on there, and so hard that if you take your finger and try to push down on that bullet, it won't move. It won't move because recoil of the gun will cause that to loosen if you don't have a good hard crimp on there, and your velocity will be affected by that crimp. So it's got to have a good hard, solid, dug right in crimp. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's got to be a good crimp. You should not be able to push that down in there as hard as you try. That's a good crimp. So you got to make sure you watch that. See how that's about halfway through there? Okay. You got to have it above that lube groove enough that the crimp won't stove that in, but yet will be dug into the bullet tight. So that's what you got to do on that. And then I tested it with my chronometer, and I'm getting about 700 feet per second out of my 2-inch snubby, which means on a 4-inch barrel or a 6-inch barrel, it's probably going to be 800 feet per second. And that's not hot. It's about middle of the road for that. The original load is probably about 650, 7, I don't know, somewhere in there. That was black powder. This is going to be running about, I'd say about 8 in a 4-inch revolver, maybe a little less. It's running about 7, 680, 710, somewhere in there on this 2-inch. So you can add the velocity, an extra inch. You could probably add another, 20 feet per second every inch, so that's what that's running right there. So get yourself a press, get yourself a scale, get everything you need. I just hand powdered these and poured each one with this in the shell here. The reason why I deprimed them and resized them and everything first is because I wanted to deburr them, and then I wanted to wash them, and then now I'll put them back in the press. Let's see here. Get over here. And then I'll just, after they're primed, I'll have them all loaded, and I could do one at a time in here. I could just, I don't go so far, just do one at a time. I'll have them all set up, and then they'll come out, and they'll look like this. They're very accurate, and pretty powerful. So, like I say, you could shoot that bullet in any 38 or any 357 Magnum, and it's just absolute fun. Here's a bunch of cases I got ready. I'm getting ready to load. Here's some CCI 500 primers. So, this is the easy way, in my opinion, to make the 38 short Colt pretty cheap. I love hard cast bullets. These are really hard. You can't even dent them with your fingernail. They're super, super hard. That's what you want because you don't want any leading in your barrel. These hard cast bullets, they hurt. They really do the job. But that's how you do the 38 short Colt. A little bit of history and how to reload them. If you have any questions on the 38 short Colt or anything else for that matter, and you want to see more reloading stuff on this channel, I restored this press, by the way. It was a total mess. I restored that. If you want to see any more reloading, just drop me a line, give me a comment, and we'll do so. But for now, thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.